Right now on WUSA 9 News at 11, D.C. is getting ready for tomorrow's arraignment of former President Donald Trump. He's expected to show up to D.C.'s federal courthouse to turn himself in. This after a federal grand jury indicted him on 4 felony charges in the January 6th investigation. The former president is accused of conspiring to overturn the 2020 election results. I'm Leslie Foster. This arraignment is scheduled for 4 p.m. tomorrow. It will be Trump's 3rd time showing up to a courtroom in just a few months. But this time it's happening in our backyard. There is heightened security across D.C. at this late hour. These bike rack style barriers at the courthouse just went up about 90 minutes ago. Adam Longo is there live with a look at what's happening right now and really what we can expect as we get around the city tomorrow.
Yeah, Leslie, we'll address all of that. First, though, I wanted to give you just a different perspective of that same shot from the front of the courthouse that we've been seeing all day. We're actually on the side of the federal court facility, district court here in D.C. And you can see these emergency no parking signs have gone up all around the building, in addition to, as you mentioned, these bike rack style security fences that just layer the entire perimeter of the building. So we're at C and 3rd Street right now. And this up here is likely where the former president's motorcade would come in. And I say that because literally that fencing that surrounds the entire perimeter, this is the only place that it's open. And then come up here, you see MPD officers here on the scene as well. Right here is where the drive would go underground into the garage where the former president would access the building. Now, here's what we know from security officials about what else we might expect when the former president arrives tomorrow. Secret Service officials outside of the courthouse strategizing ahead of former President Trump's Thursday appearance. Other law enforcement agencies are expected as well, with a heavy presence blanketing the building that's within walking distance of the U.S. Capitol. A Secret Service spokesman putting out a statement about the agency coordinating with D.C.'s Metropolitan Police Department, the U.S. Marshals Service, U.S. Park Police, U.S. Capitol Police, and the Federal Protective Service.
They're going to have a surge of manpower around this building.
Former MPD Chief Charles Ramsey says law enforcement has its work cut out for them, especially if a surge of Donald Trump supporters and critics all show up to make their voices heard.
What's going on social media? What are they hearing in the street? Are they going to have protesters show up? All these kinds of things. They'll be checking with like bus companies to see whether or not buses have been rented to come into D.C., hotel reservations.
D.C. police saying they are working closely with our federal law enforcement partners to monitor the situation and plan accordingly. Law enforcement officers have been patrolling the area outside the courthouse throughout the week, along with bomb-sniffing dogs. We want Trump! Then there's the question of how much we'll see of the former president, if at all. Cameras aren't allowed inside of federal court facilities like this one, and one former Secret Service agent says Trump will likely not be brought in through a sidewalk entrance.
When it's a very public event, you prefer covered arrivals. As much cover as possible, less exposure to the public on the sidewalk.
Now, Metropolitan Police putting out some information just within the past 45 minutes, letting people in the city know to expect rolling road closures and some intermittent traffic delays as the president's motorcade is expected to make its way through town. The security apparatus here at the courthouse and at the Capitol is on heightened alert, especially given what happened earlier today with what Capitol Police Chief Manger called a false alarm. Somebody calling in and saying that there was an armed invader somewhere on the Capitol property. Despite that, though, we did have a chance to talk to the Capitol Police Chief tonight, and he said even with the security precautions that are going on, they don't have any sort of specific threat, so they will not be putting up any sort of fencing around the U.S. Capitol complex. We're live outside of Federal District Court in D.C. Adam Longo, WUSA 9.
Everybody taking every part of this seriously. All right, Adam, thank you. Let's talk about what happens once the former president is in the court building and he's out of the view of cameras. So I talked with attorney Brandon Fox about this tonight. He's a managing partner at Jenner & Block in Los Angeles. And here are 3 things you need to know based on our conversation. First, he says it's a simple process. It's quick. Expect the entire thing to last about an hour. Trump will enter a plea, then both sides and the judge will talk about the bond terms and when defense attorneys and we'll see the prosecution's evidence. And then finally, they'll discuss a trial date. And Brandon told me he'd expect the special counsel may ask for it to start in December or early January, well ahead of Election Day. Tonight, as we started putting this newscast together, we realized there is a part of this story we didn't want to ignore, and that's the voices of our neighbors who live near the Capitol. This is personal for so many of them. January 6th happened in our backyard, and Trump's arraignment will too. This all comes as, of course, we told you about that big scare at the Capitol this afternoon. Adam mentioned it. Buildings were cleared. Officers went room to room after a report of an active shooter, but it was a report that turned out to be false. Casey Nolan is live near the Capitol, where he spent the evening talking to neighbors. Case, what'd they tell you?
Well, Leslie, I can tell you it was certainly tense closer to the Capitol earlier today before police determined that call was bogus, like you just said. But here tonight, well, we heard a mix of opinions on whether this neighborhood should be worried about tomorrow. When this is your neighborhood,
Capitol building's such a big looming presence. It's I don't know, it's cool to see.
security can often be part of the view too.
I consider it to be a very special place.
Etta Felix has called the Capitol Hill neighborhood home for more than 40 years and says the past couple have had some challenges.
On January 6th, we could hear the cacophony. We could hear the rioters at the Capitol. The fencing from hell that never went away took 2 years. And then pandemic comes, like, okay, how else can we change life? Yeah. How else can we really mess this up?
Now, a return trip to D.C. by former President Trump is on the minds of some here, uncertain about what his court appearance just blocks away could mean for life on this side of the Capitol.
I mean, definitely considering, what happened on January 6th, definitely, I would say there's cause for concern, or at least, being vigilant.
Yeah, hopefully it's not a big hassle for us. Ideally, we wouldn't have any traffic jams or blockades or anything, but I know that's been a problem in times past.
Others say when this is your neighborhood, you learn to live with history and the security that can come with it.
Capitol has its own self-contained police department, right? So let them worry about the Capitol.
And I feel like since DC is a relatively left-leaning area, I don't think there will be too much of a hubbub like there was on January 6th. And he's not tweeting about it going to be wild or anything like that.
And if there is any trouble, Etta says they can handle that too.
We rebuild. Life goes on. Fencing came down.
One consistent concern we did hear tonight was possible road closures. You heard Adam talk about that, police saying there will be some rolling closures and to look out for those emergency no parking signs. Leslie?
Well, we've been through this before, certainly with those rolling closures. I'm sure we can manage it again. Casey, thank you.